Welcome to another Q&A. This Q&A is really for newbies who have just sort of bought a water-fed system and they're experiencing spots on the glass. And by the end of this video, you'll be able to discern, why do I get spots based on where they are, what did I do wrong, how do I fix what went wrong. So I'll put a photo up somewhere around here showing you what it might look like. In this case, the spots on the glass are close to the top of the window, and so we can discern the technique of the operator by this, by what we see, and so I'll explain those to you. So if you're using, the premise is if you're using pure water, spot-free water, and you get spots on the glass, it could be caused by one of several things. The one which I won't cover now is called hard water stains. I'm going to make another video around that. But let's assume that there's no hard water stain from sprinklers or from the cladding of the building, right? So if you get spots on the glass, that means that you have introduced a mineral or a solid, like dirt, into your spot-free water rinse. And then, so the question would be, well, how did I do that? And usually it's that you've wet above the top line of your agitation. So some guys can get away with cleaning the glass only, and maybe once a year they'll clean the frames. Other guys clean the frames every time, no problem, doesn't matter, but still, whichever way you go, you still have to make sure that you don't wet above where you've agitated. So the relationship between the top of your jet stream and the top of your agitation zone, they need to be exactly the same. If they're not exactly the same, there's a couple of things going to happen. You're either going to have to do off-glass rinse, right, which we designed out, right? So we designed all of the radial brushes so that you can rinse on glass, or rinse on frame, depending on where you're cleaning to. And so if you wet above where you've agitated, then you're putting spot-free water onto dirt, and then that dirt is going to join your rinse. And if because we talk about single action clean, agitate on the upstroke, rinse on the downstroke. So if you then do your rinse on the downstroke, that dirt is going to be in your rinse water. Yeah. So then when the water beads and then the beads evaporate, like the H2O molecules, they all evaporate and gasiate, then what's going to be left is whatever can't evaporate, which could be dirt or could be minerals or whatever. Usually it's dirt, right, in this particular instance. So to avoid that, you have to study the radial technique and also get the flow rate in your brush correct, right? So all of the radial brushes are designed around 1/2 gallon per minute or 2 liters per minute, and we do that so that you can set your fluid dynamic system and it's always going to be consistent. And then if you're in a situation where you need a lower flow rate, then the light and the ultralight have a low flow rinse bar option, which is around 1.5 liters per minute or 1/3 of a gallon per minute. But how do you know you've got the right flow rate? And then how do we control this relationship between the top of the jet and the top of your agitation? And the secret in the design of the radial brushes is that when we go across with the brush, if this is the brush and this is the frame, right, we're going to go across the top of the frame or across the top of the glass, and we're going to try and get 45 degrees. Now what happens when we angle a brush at 45 degrees? Gravity says, because water will find the path of least resistance, so gravity will want the water to come out of the bottom of the brush more than the top of the brush. So there's actually more water comes out of the bottom jets than comes out of the top jets. So the top jets, the distance which they travel comes back down. So while you're going across the top of let's say the top of the glass for the purpose of the conversation, right, the top jets, when you're at 45 degrees, the top jets are going to drop down and they're just going to reach above where your bristles are. So they're going to rinse where the brush has been, but they're not going to rinse over where your brush has been. So that's why you want to understand. We've got another video on how to calculate your flow rate. So you can have a look in the Reach It workshop in YouTube and find that one, how to calculate my flow rate. and you want to really, really understand. Once you know what the flow rate is for all of the brushes, then you can visually see it, and then you put the brush at 45 degrees and you can see those top jets dropping down. But sometimes I get guys who are using a gallon a minute, and those jets are pissing water right over the brush, right into the dirt, and that's often at the beginning of the journey of waterfed. Once you've mastered that, then you know that in every instance when you can angle a brush and making sure the size of the brush is right so you can angle a brush across the top, it's the same as using a squeegee. The top edge is critical. You get the top edge right, the rest of the window is straightforward. But if you get it wrong in the top edge, then you can have some problems, right? Because then that dirt is going to end up in your rinse water. The rinse water is going to evaporate, and your dirt is going to be left in spots. The other point that I want to make is if you're coming into the corner of the frame, right, you're going to come across, you're going to roll through the corner to clean the corner out like anything that's in there with the edge of the brush. That's why we have the radial bristles, so they scroll through. And then you're going to angle the brush, you're going to turn the brush and angle the brush this way going down the frame. So because the water doesn't go through any radial brush, it goes across the top of the radial brush, and that has a massive, half gallon per minute flow rate all going in one direction and taking any debris that you've got, making sure that the last thing on the glass is spot-free water, which means that when it evaporates, it'll evaporate and give you a spot-free window. So what happens is that as you go around and through that corner, you'll see the jets. As you change this angle, those jets will start squirting, more in that place where you want them, and that's how the brush is designed. That it actually, as you scroll through the corners, it rinses out the corners and makes sure that you're getting your proper rinse in the same action that you cleaned, right? We don't want you going back and taking the brush off the glass and going back and rinsing, or going back up like in the old days with a constructor brush. We would have to go back up and then do a fan rinse as a secondary action. All of that's been eliminated. It's very much a single action clean when you use a radial brush, and it's just about getting the technique right. Now I'll give you one tip. If you're a newbie, don't practice on the second floor or third floor. Like, we'll get all excited about how high can I reach and all this, right? You want to do your training, just take the top section out of your pole, put your brush on there, get your water, and observe the flow rate, the relationship of the flow rate to how far the jets squirt, what happens when you turn it at 30 degrees, what happens when you turn it at 90 degrees, what happens when you turn it at 45 degrees, and then you can actually mathematically remember what it should look like. And if you do remember what it should look like, you'll be able to make sure that you get the result, the perfect result earlier than if you don't. Because if you don't get the perfect result, you write to me and I'll tell you what I'm telling you in this video, right? So that's really the summary of why you see spots when you're using spot-free water on windows, apart from hard water stains, and I'll do the hard water stains Q&A next, so you should be able to find it very close to this one. Okay, so if you have any questions, if you have any comments, if you've got other ideas, if you agree or disagree, please share them with us. We read all the comments, and then quite often that becomes the source of another Q&A, or it becomes edifying, where it increases the knowledge of the people that are interested in this thread and topic, and they can read other window cleaners' impressions and experiences. Maybe some guys use different tools, and so they have a different experience, and sometimes it turns into an interesting conversation, which we love. Okay, all right, that's it. We'll see you in the next one.